Welcome. I'm here with Dave Rendall, author of The Freak Factor. And look, Dave, you just wowed. You closed the audience for us here at the Growth Summit. You said something interesting, that excellence is a form of deviance.
Yeah.
Talk about what you did on the stage.
Well, we live in a society where deviance generates external pressures to conform. We live in a society that when you're weird, people want you to be normal. And yet people, if you ask them, they'd say, but I want to be awesome. I want to be amazing. I want my kids to be excellent. And you say, but that would mean they need to be weird. Oh, no, you can be, oh, no, you can't, right? And so, but we don't think of them both at the same time. So when confronted with it, people realize that, but our natural response to difference is to see, if we say someone's weird or someone's strange, we don't mean that in a positive way. And yet excellent people are weird and strange. They have to be, because that's what excellent means. And so I think we just have this disconnect where our world is pulling people in one direction and then pushing them in the opposite direction and not realizing that they're holding them in one spot and keeping them from succeeding.
And so how do we think about that relative to our company? I know you quoted one of my favorite strategists, Dr. Frances Fry, and her uncommon service. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, the way that applies to our companies is that, again, so for example, let's imagine we're at a meeting with our top managers and somebody comes up with an idea and somebody says, I don't know of any other company that does that. And then everybody goes, yeah, so we probably shouldn't either. Yeah. And then if somebody comes up with an idea and somebody goes, yeah, there was this company and I read this book once, and then they think, oh, well, if someone else is doing it, it must be a good idea. And so we do the total opposite, right? We think to do the normal thing is going to make us excellent, and to do the unusual thing is going to cause us to fail, when it's exactly the opposite. So we have to be on the lookout for, no one else does it, so let's give it a try. No one else has ever done it, let's give it a try. And everyone's doing it, so why should we bother? That's not the way to differentiate ourselves. It's not the way to stand out.
Yeah, and that's the key word. I mean, we're all fighting this commoditization of all of our industries. We say we want to differentiate, yet...
Yeah, well, and that's why I started with all the words iconoclast and unorthodox and all these kinds of things, is because we say we want to be mavericks, or we think we might, but as soon as we take one step towards that, people start pulling us back and say, no, don't do that. That's not going to work out for you. That's a terrible idea. And so it's hard to execute on differentiation. And I think it's also something, I was sitting with one of the people from Fortune, Brittany, while we were talking before, and she said, yeah, I think you're saying that we don't need to create difference. We just need to accept the difference we already have. And I think that's it. I think some people go, okay, so how do I make my company different? It's like, no, you already are different. And in fact, you're probably restraining some of the things that would make you even more different. So it's not about how do we manufacture difference. It's how do we let the difference that we have come out, and how do we live it out in our culture? How do we let our personalities as founders and as owners and as CEOs come through and spread throughout our organization? And how do we embrace those things that make us unique, instead of always going, let's move back towards the middle, because the middle is where mediocrity and where average lives.
And the same with our organizations. And so, look, it's a power-packed book. It actually has a link to an assessment and some other tools.
Yeah, the assessments are actually right in there. And then if people want to use copies that are easier to reproduce and things like that in their organization, they can contact me and get those. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So read The Freak Factor. Dave, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yep.